Hi. I'm going to do a series on rebirth, the dynamics of rebirth, and the six classical worlds of rebirth in Buddhism. So there's going to be a series of seven sessions, so to speak, 7 parts. The first one, which is this one, is going to be what I call the kitchen sink dynamics, or here and now, ordinary life dynamics of birth and rebirth in the 6 worlds. Why do I call it that? Because we're not going to talk about abstract theoretical things. We're going to talk about the notion of birth and rebirth and a little bit of the Bardo as it applies to everyday living, everyday life. As you might imagine, in a lot of things there's a cyclic pattern. There's patterns within patterns within patterns, as has been revealed by fractal geometry, by systems theory, and so on. So we could take birth, death, rebirth at a macrocosmic level, at the actual birth of the body as it appears, the death of the body as it appears, and a rebirth. Or we could look at it moment by moment. In other words, in some sense, we die and are reborn every moment, because remember, the self or things in general are not solid entities with self-existing nature, but they are part of an intricate network of causes and conditions. When the causes and conditions are there, a phenomenon manifests. When the humidity is right and the wind is right, clouds appear and it rains. When there's no high humidity, when the sun is shining, then the sky is clear. It all depends on cause and effect. In that sense, is a very scientific way of thinking. The same way with human life and our consciousness. It is said that it's more of a mind stream in the Dharma. Mind stream meaning there's particles. You might imagine particles coming in and out all the time. Imagine a river. In one moment it's polluted, and then little by little the particles of pollution are extracted and clean water comes in, and all of a sudden you have a clean river. Is it the same river as the river that was polluted, or is it a different river? The Greek philosopher said, if you dip your hand in a river, is it the same hand that you dipped yesterday? So is it the same hand? Is it the same river? And according to the Dharma and the theory or the teaching on interdependent origination, as well as the 5 skandhas, the so-called self, the stream, this mind stream, is like a river in which arise emotions and tendencies and so on, and that is what carries through from death to rebirth. By the way, I have a new system here to time the 15 minutes, so if we hear a bell, that means my time is up, and I will pretty quickly stop talking, so bear with me. It's just a way of measuring so I don't overdo the time. So looking at our everyday life, moment to moment, as I was saying, we die and are reborn. Moment to moment we are recreated, so to speak. The self is recreated. Am I the same self that was when I was 5 years old? Am I the same self that will be when I'm 80, which is only 20 years from now? The answer is probably no, or maybe more clearly yes and no. It's like saying the flame of a candle of an hour ago, is that the same flame as now? Well, it's located in that same candle that I see there in a corner. The candle is shorter. The flame has been continuous, so in some sense it's the same flame because there's been a continuity of stream. But in another sense, the wick is heated up and the wax flows up to the wick and combusts and burns into different particles and goes up into the air. So in that sense, it's new wax and new wick that's coming in, and it's new. It's every moment it's new. So it's both, and we are the same way. So again, thinking in terms of here and now, our everyday life. All of us are born and reborn into these 6 worlds, and possibly 8,408, 84,000 worlds. 6 worlds is just a convenient way again of grouping kind of characteristic clusters of typical clusters of characteristics or traits that are quite obvious and actually help one look at someone or oneself and see what trends exist, and that's its own value. You know, the question comes up, and it's come up when I was a therapist. I presented some of this, and the question the therapist will always ask, or almost always, well, what do you do with it? What do you do? Well, the doing is just the seeing. And in seeing these patterns, we're able to disidentify and let go, and the energy can flow in the space of awareness. So that's really the seeing is the doing, so to speak, or the seeing is all that is necessary in this approach. So to go through the 6 worlds real quick, there are 6 from most pleasurable to least pleasurable, I guess you might say, even though not necessarily from the most valuable from the dharmic point of view. But they're like the God world, God realm, which is pleasure beings. They call them pleasure beings. They're not God like we are used to think of a Christian God. It's more like just pleasure beings. It's a field, and they're called devas, which, you know, at the time of the Buddha, Hinduism had quite a belief, and there's popular belief sometimes in spirits, you know, nature spirits, making the flowers grow and making the grass grow and making it rain and this kind of thing. It's somewhat akin to Native American belief, actually, I think. Although, you know, to lump all tribes and all practices into one, it's very dangerous too. But anyway, it's kind of a nature idea. But devas, basically pleasure beings, experience mostly pleasure till they die, but they still die. Then there's called the Titans or jealous gods, which who are still, you know, superior, strong, have a lot of good, but are jealous of the devas. They kind of wish, they feel incomplete. They kind of wish they had more, and it's kind of a wanting all the time and being jealous and maybe even not appreciating what they have. And there's the human world, which is our world, which is the world of desire. We're constantly thinking of, to be honest, most of our thinking is probably, especially for males, I guess, sex, food, power, prestige, car, a house, a position in a company. These are the things that the human mind probably spends 80–90% of the time obsessing about, uselessly. I mean, I say obsessing about for the most part. You know, thought has its place when you plan things. If you're an architect, you couldn't make plans for a building without thought, using mathematical formulae and so on. But it's not a very good tool for everyday living. If we don't take it too seriously, if we know what meditation is like and how focusing on an object lets us disengage from this obsessive thinking, which continues involuntarily in the back of our mind, then we understand that thought is not the end-all be-all. Certainly not striving thought of wanting, possessing. Then next comes what they call the hungry ghosts. Oh no, I'm sorry, no. Below human then comes what they call the animal realm. And it's not exactly maybe what your pussycat or your puppy are in, but it's a kind of a blind instinctual realm that's driven, like we said, by just kind of blind routine instinctual drive. It's short-sighted. The image is that of a pig rotting on the ground looking for food. It can only see just what's right in front of it. And also the animal world, it's thought to not be very good. I think in the West and even in Japanese culture, the animal world and realm is more idealized. But in Tibetan Buddhism, as in Indian Buddhism, to be an animal is not a very good thing. You're, you know, hunted by bigger animals. You are stupid. You don't know who you are, and you get cut and you get sick. You suffer pain. You don't know what to do. Of course, there's, you know, instincts like animals eat certain grasses and so on. But again, it's all blind instinct. This is different from the idealization, for example, you see in Eckhart Tolle of animals being, you know, almost like enlightened. They are instinctual and they don't think very much, but they're not enlightened. Enlightenment, it's a human characteristic, and it's a higher characteristic. So anyway, the animal world is not a very good world to be liberated from. The human world is the best. And then comes the hungry ghost realm, which is just nothing satisfies sort of a general low hum background of pain, and you know, they're portrayed as big bellies and little mouths, and they swallow something and it becomes molten lead, and you know, they have to go through fields of razor blades, and just painful. Not quite like a hell, but we consider it a hell, as from the human point of view, of course. And then it's a hell with all kinds of horrible descriptions and so on, but you know, mainly propelled by anger and rage and revenge, and you know, in the hells there's just continuous pain that drives the karma of being in hell. But anyway, what happens is that moment to moment our thoughts drive us to different rebirths. You know, I die in this moment, and if I was angry, the next moment I'm reborn an angry being, and then that may subside and I may relax again and feel compassion, so I'm reborn again, either a human or a deva, if I feel real pleasure, or and then I get lazy and I kind of space out and I'm reborn an animal. But no, we're not stuck. And you know, most people in their everyday lives are still not stuck in one realm. They tend to cycle through, and you can see it in people. But then again, we see some people, exceptional people, but we see them that are mired in certain of these worlds mentally. For example, the Wall Street tycoon that's extremely competitive and you know, dog eat dog and wants to have more. That's kind of not somebody living in the jealous God world, or someone who, you know, some New Agers who maybe have meditated and have achieved ecstatic states of mind, and now you know, like this sort of naive follow your bliss philosophy that I'm afraid Joseph Campbell has unhelpfully helped spread. If it feels good, do it. It's another cruder variant of that. And these folks try to maintain pleasure at all costs. Pleasure with drugs like, you know, marijuana and calming drugs. Pleasure with chanting hymns. Okay, we're getting there. Couple minutes left. Anyway, these people live in a God world, and the God world eventually people's karma runs out and they start smelling bad and they die from that world. The human world is those folks that are, for example, say into manifesting. You know, they think that the law of attraction, we hear that a lot. You know, whatever you think becomes true, and they're into manifesting things, not in the rageful kind of jealous way of the jealous gods, but in a sort of desirous wishing world, living in the future. You know, everything's going to come in, money is going to come in, and everything's going to be great. Sexual fantasies all the time. These people are stuck in the human world, and by the way, this human realm of rebirth is not exactly our human condition, because in our human condition, of course, we can become open, discover the open dimension, the spacious nature of mind, and become living Buddhists, actually, in this lifetime. So it's not just being human, but the human rebirth world. And the same thing for hatred, hell. Somebody like Hitler, somebody that's full of hatred, full of venom, caught up in revenge. A lot of movies, samurai movies, Kill Bill, you know, these are revenge movies, and they're glorified and they're kind of fun to watch, but somebody living in that world is in great pain. So anyway, that's the kitchen sink dynamic, and all we have to do is look. And of course, if you practice meditation, if you practice shamatha vipassana, the vipassana aspect of looking at your mind, how it works, is what will free you. It frees us. Frees us to open up to pain and pleasure equally, beautiful and ugly, and then these forms appear, stay for a moment, and disappear, and there's a flow. There's a flow of form rather than being stuck in one thing. And it's the same analogy as in death. When we're open to the clear light or that spacious nature, that's a chance for liberation. Well, we did pretty good for time, and till the next time, Tachidalek.